In this problem, our prompt is, this is part of our prompt, in the dynamic aggregate demand and aggregate supply model, what is the result of aggregate demand increasing more than the potential GDP? Okay, so aggregate demand, let's talk about this first, represents the total demand for goods and services at a given price level. At any given price level in a specific time period. And the GDP is the maximum output an economy can produce. Without triggering inflation. I'm going to have to stop and write a little bit. Okay, so if the aggregate demand increases more than the GDP, it'll lead to an inflationary gap. This happens because the increased aggregate demand puts a strain on the economy, which causes higher prices. The inflationary gap is a macroeconomic concept which describes a situation where a country's real GDP is higher than its long-term potential GDP. Okay, my next part, what happens if the aggregate demand increases less than the GDP? This will lead to a recessionary gap. Lower demand leads to underutilization of resources, resulting in lower output levels than potential GDP. The recessionary gap is also a macroeconomic concept describing a situation where a country's real GDP is lower than its long-term potential GDP.